But with that said, I've had the gift of extreme chronic allergies for 50 years, gift or curse, whatever you want to call it. And it actually led me to a point where, nothing worked when I learned about it as a kid. I didn't know how to approach it. I mean, 50 years ago, there was nothing. Especially when you're tested of 65 tests items and you're allergic to 45 of them. You say, so well. And so finally, with the help of my girlfriend Akari, actually, a year and a half ago, year and 3/4 now, I was trying something which I knew I shouldn't have done, but I did it anyway with dairy. And it put me so bad into chronic fatigue. After 21 days, I couldn't lift my head up off the pillow. And finally, after researching everything possible and totally denying it's dairy, I surrendered and says, you know what, it's the dairy. And at that point, I made a commitment to myself that I was going to do whatever it takes to overcome my allergies, whatever it takes. And here I am a year and 3/4 later, and I could say thumbs up, 94, 95%, I've been successful. Food allergies, in the way that I would typically describe them, I could almost say I really haven't had any for the last 6-8 months now. But what tends to happen is when I finally clear away from one thing for a while, new arenas come up. Like I was at a friend's restaurant and he pulled out some meat to make it was lamb, to make some burgers for some little whatever, for a party. And it ended up, although we just got it, it was bad. Anyway, the fumes, and I was like, I gotta go. And he keeps talking and talking, and I'm sitting there trying to think, what hit me? I don't even know what was going on. Is it something from smells from the bathroom? Is it something he said? I have no idea. And so anyway, after the 4th time I said I gotta go, over how many minutes I don't know, he says, why don't you go already? And it's like, oh. So I left, and as I was driving away, it's like, what hit me? And I realized it was the meat. Immediately desensitized, and boom, I was totally back to where I was before it happened. And anyway, that opened up a whole new doorway of things to look at, of what are the gases in the world? What are the environmental chemicals and things like that? So I was guided to look at, shortly thereafter, or maybe it was before that, I forget, something coming off volcanoes. And because I could look at the meridian, so to speak, of energy flows and stuff like this, I could tie back in with intuition, asking questions, identify it to be a volcano and the gases, and then desensitize. And what I found is after a day or two with that process, those issues pretty much went away. Very cool. 3 weeks later, I had a day where I just had no energy, and 3, 4 in the afternoon is like, okay, what's going on here, And I started intuiting and looking at what it was, and I discovered that it was gases coming off the dying ocean somewhere. And it makes total sense. It'd be every few weeks or whatever, because different weather patterns, whenever they come, suddenly boom. So again, I desensitized it when I discovered it. Since I had the whole day of being decimated, so to speak, with it, it took till the next morning till I really regained my energy. But I was able to, and that's the important thing. And then I started looking ahead and saw that this energy was going to be coming again this direction in a few weeks. And so I desensitized ahead, which was pretty cool, because 3 weeks later I was out on a hike, and I knew sooner or later this might be getting here, and suddenly, boom, I got hit. But I was able to rebound within an hour, because I was expecting it, and I had already done some previous work on it. And this repeated itself on a much lesser level about 3 weeks later, and I finally got to the point where that's not an issue anymore. So I was cooking along, doing pretty good, and then recently, another level of this dynamic came along, environmental, and I realized it was coming from another direction that I hadn't really been looking for. So now I'm looking at like a lava, how do you say, spewing in all directions, my energy to watch what's happening in all directions, and working on desensitizing in all directions now. And I'm getting ahead of the flow. I'm getting ahead of it. And it's like, I don't know what'll be next. Part of what I went through back in not too long ago was really addressing some of my, what I consider my major life traumas. One was being spanked for, I think it may have gone on for 6 or 7 years, heavily spanked for, once a week. Forgive, let go. It's not a big deal anymore. I don't support it as a way to discipline kids, but I let it go. It's not pulling me down. Most of it I let go years ago, but some reason I had to go a little deeper in it. But what really was a big one is a triangulation issues between my son and my ex-wife, that there was just been 10, 15 years of craziness. And he's fortunately in support of counseling right now. And so I was in a position I was able to say, you know what? I don't want to talk to you for a month. And about 2 hours later, these big energies, 2 of them, just lifted off my chest. It's like, whoa. And I've been like a new person since then. It's been like joyous. The joy like I haven't had in since ever. And so anyway, this is the nature of my work, is tuning in to other people's issues on my own and helping them release the trauma or sensitivities that are causing reactions so that their whole body can heal. I can probably give you a list of 25 things in my life that have changed or have significantly changed since that point. When I was a kid for half my life, 25 years, I would sneeze 100 times in a row. Yeah, and that decimates the energy. My nose would be runny for a day or so after that, and I'd be exhausted for about 4 to 5 days until a day or two later it happened again. So that was half my life. Chronic fatigue at different levels, on and off. I mean, I found management techniques with the medical Qigong and Qigong practices. Years ago, back 2004, I did a trade with someone who does some energy work. Does allergy desensitization with one of these techniques out there. And on the first session, she tested me highly sensitive to 7 out of 10 things. And I'm like, and she desensitized me to 1, and I'm thinking this is going to be a long process. So the next morning when I woke up feeling pretty good, I thought, okay, how could I do this on my own? And I tapped into her system energetically and was able to desensitize myself to the top 10. When I went back, I was mildly sensitive to 3 out of 10. Wow. From there, she gave me a copy of the list, and I would do it in batches of 10 or 25 or 50 at a time. And never really gone into the detail because I'm not a detailed person. But really looking at just, people have called me like Roto-Rooter of energy healing. I just like, I go in there and I just drill out whatever has to be drilled out. And so anyway, that's how I work. That's, now before I go on, I know I'm going to have to be conscious of time. So if you'll help me on that one, Terry, I think we had till 5:05. Let me put it out for, are there any questions? Otherwise, I can do a little something here with energy, but let's go for questions first.
I'm going to just throw some of them out, and you can either see that there's a theme or, this is amazing to hear. You're very, very sensitive. Is there physical touch? Obviously, there must be some physical touch. You have to touch a client and feel what you see, or is it a certain degree away from their body? God, anybody have reading glasses?
Let's take it one at a time. That's a great question. And my first answer is, I've worked on people who I've never even met, but afterwards have been told about the incredible results. Okay? I've been requested through another person, in that case, their partner. And they were in the hospital, and So I tuned in, asked spirit permission. I don't do things with people if I don't have spirit permission. And I'll go one step further. There's a case of somebody in politics who years ago I was guided to work on, and I says, no, I don't have their permission. I tried to reach them. They were running for election at the time. And I put it out there. I was trying to contact them. And it was a presidential candidate. But anyway, the next night, again, I had this message, you got to work on this person. Okay, you have to. So I asked Spirit, I had their permission, and I did the work. The next day, I get a message that they're going to be in town on Saturday afternoon and evening. And do I want to meet them with some other people? So here, a group of us, his campaign committee, I guess, whatever, and myself, there were 10 of us, were waiting for him at La Fonda in the restaurant. He came in, we sat in a circle, and gave each person a chance to say or ask something. And so I told him the story of what happened. And I asked permission, could I work on you again in the future? Because I won't do it without permission going forward. And he says, thank you, I did receive the healing. And he says, normally I would not give anyone permission to do what you're asking for, but I do give you permission. To me, that's probably only one or two times I've ever worked on somebody without verbal permission first or them knowing about it. So does that answer your question?
Something, yes. I mean, it's
I don't touch.
It's fascinating. Are you getting energy signals from us here? Are you aware of environmental stuff? And the other thing is, in the naming of what it is, does that kind of like desensitize it? Because you talked about, the meat smell coming up or dairy. So once you're aware of that, does that shift everything for you, or is it a process still to, continue the desensitizing? And then part of that is also, how do you maintain boundaries then to keep yourself, intact, to not be assaulted by all our energies or whatever? I mean, it's a big piece of helping the healer take care of himself, herself, So, and a zillion more because you're fascinating.
Okay, I'll start with the last question.